Welcome to John's Island. I hope you'll follow along as I compare a Royal Grand Peak to the Zero Pro Peak, and that you'll join me in my meditations on Matthew 18 verses 10 through 14 as I play some disc golf and seek to glorify the Lord for His Word, for His world, and for His Redeemer. It's critical we remember that in Matthew 18, Jesus has been starting with the need for us to be like children as we come to Him, and the various temptations that go along with that. Jesus has taught His disciples that to be great in the kingdom of heaven means that you are like a child, and you enter with the faith of a child. He's also emphasized how anyone who would cause one of these children to sin, it would be better for them to lose their life and livelihood in one go. From the idea of causing little ones to sin, Jesus then goes on to tell us how seriously we should take sin in our own lives. That we should make no room for sin in any way, shape, or form. That it would be better for us to go into eternity lame and blind than to have made opportunity for sin. In our passage today, Jesus tracks back to this idea of thinking about the little ones, the children, and their relationship with the Father and with those who would claim to be Jesus' disciples. Particularly that the disciples would keep from despising the little ones. Jesus explains that one of the reasons these little ones should not be despised is that in heaven, their angels always see the face of their Father who is in heaven. At first blush, it feels like there's a lot more ways to misunderstand this particular passage than there are ways to get it right. So I'm going to spend some more time thinking about the role of angels and what they do in God's economy of salvation and keeping people. Jesus goes on to give us an illustration, a parable about lost sheep, specifically asking who, having 100 sheep, if one goes astray, would not go after that straying sheep. Jesus then makes the point that when the one finds that missing sheep, he takes greater joy in it than the 99 who did not go astray. We'll embrace that this is true, that we love finding what is lost more than just having what was never lost. Jesus concludes these verses by saying, "Therefore it is not the will of my Father that any of these little ones should perish." Honestly, these three statements are not particularly hard to understand, at least at the highest level. But the challenge is seeing how having angels that see the face of the Father in heaven, and how the parable of the lost sheep, and how the Father's will that none should perish all work together. We have to remember that the context of this passage is that of being a little one to enter the kingdom of heaven, to keep from causing those little ones to sin, and to do all things to keep ourselves from sinning. Honestly, that's a lot of context to bring together into one coherent spot. Perhaps it would help if we start with the idea that the little ones are obviously children, but also that we're to think of ourselves as little ones, not putting stumbling blocks before others or putting temptations to sin before our very own selves. So as we enter this passage, we have to remember that a critical aspect of what Jesus has been teaching is that his disciples need to A, receive children, for to them belong the kingdom of heaven, and B, think of themselves as children. If we have both of those things in mind, I think this passage makes a bit more sense. If we are children of the living God, and we have angels. And let's remember what angels are. They're messengers and representatives. So if our messengers and representatives always see the face of the Father, there's a sense in which the Father always knows my need and my weakness. Bearing in mind the whole testimony of the Bible, God the Father and God himself, triune and holy, is omnipresent and omniscient and all-powerful, but he delights to use means, both among mankind and angelic, to accomplish his ends and purposes. So consider with joy that God the Father has angels standing before him who are ready to report on our comings and our goings. Angels that when we go astray, report on us, that the Lord might delight to come and find us and to bring us back. You and I are the lost sheep of the parable, and the Lord delights to find us and to bring us back when we go astray. Consider the good news of the gospel, that the Father would not have any of his little ones perish. He will keep his own to the very end. Consider, too, that his means of keeping us are both angelic and human. We have angels standing before the face of the Father on our behalf. And we are called to cut off anything that might tempt us to sin, both for ourselves and for the rest of the Lord's little ones. So let us not despise the weak and the lowly, the childlike. Instead, let us welcome them into the family of God and be a part of them being kept. Let's watch ourselves and rejoice when we see one brought back from wandering astray. So let's rejoice in Christ, who sought us when we had gone astray, and who has promised to use every means to keep his little ones, that they may not perish. And let's meditate on his word, that we might grow all the more confident of the Lord's goodness toward his children day by day. I hope, too, that you'll enjoy the world that God has made as we look forward to the new heavens and the new earth to come. And that you might consider joining me next time for another Disc Golf Devotional.